Zipper rolls out to the right, pitches off to Taylor, and Taylor's to the 20, down to the 15, down to the 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Billy Taylor scored a touchdown from 21 yards out. The crowd goes berserk. It was November 22nd, 1969. That they came to Barry, Michigan, all dressed in maize and blue. The words were said, the prayers were read, and everybody cried. But when they closed the coffin, there was someone else inside. Oh, they came to Barry, Michigan, but Michigan wasn't dead. And when the game was over, it was someone else instead. 11 Michigan Wolverines put on the gloves of gray, and as the organ played the victors, they laid Woody Hayes away. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V-Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue, and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. On this week's Michigan Game Day show, our guest is beat writer Austin Meek from The Athletic. Before he joins us, we begin with my view from Section 17, as we do each week. I am happy we got the win on Saturday night, but it didn't make me feel much better about this team. Without question, Cade McNamara was the difference. Let's face it, Joe Milton has had his work cut out for him all year. A young patchwork offensive line, receivers not getting open, and when they do, dropping far too many balls. Joe has looked good at times, very shaky at others. I really believe at this point his confidence is more than shaken, and that is understandable. Jim won't say who the starter will be this week, and I'm sure he has his reasons. If Cade McNamara is not under center at 12 noon on Saturday, I think most of us will be dumbfounded. He gives us our best chance right now, and he's earned the start. For we old-timers or any Michigan fans over 30, watching this team play can be very grueling. On offense, it's hard to figure out what we want to do. We run four backs in and out of the game. The offense sets up at such a slow pace, and because of that, there is no rhythm. On defense, it is what it is. We knew this would be a rebuilding year with a young defense, but none of us saw this coming. Now we have more injuries to deal with. Cam McGrone went out last Saturday, and he and Kwity Paye are questionable for the Penn State game. My guest today says despite the ragged play on both sides of the ball, there were areas of improvement the coaching staff can build on. You just have to look hard to find them. Beat writer Austin Meek from The Athletic joins us next on this week's show, here on the Michigan Man Game Day Edition, so stay with us. Here with us on our Game Day segment this week to talk about that win Saturday night at Rutgers and a little bit about what lies ahead on Saturday is Austin Meek from The Athletic. Once again, great to have you back with us, Austin.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Well, Saturday night, I think Michigan fans are all over the map on, was it a good win? We didn't see a lot of progress, but I think one thing we can all agree on is that it's safe to say Michigan would not have won without that performance from Cade McNamara. He was absolutely the difference maker Saturday night, wasn't he?
Yeah, I certainly thought so. It was 17-0 at the point that he came in the game, and Michigan's offense really had not been in sync, and that had been something going back a couple weeks that had been an issue. It's just with Joe Milton, a quarterback, that you would see him make these plays that make you go wow, and then other times the offense just would look like it wasn't really hitting on all cylinders. And I think what we saw when Cade McNamara came in the game was just a lot smoother. It didn't have the highs and lows. It just, it looked really efficient. I didn't think he did anything spectacular, but he just, he made the right play. He got the ball where it needed to go. He got Michigan's other playmakers involved, and it just felt like the offense. Had a different energy when Cade McNamara was in there, and that's really what Michigan needed.
Energy, yes, and it looked to me like his reads were just good most of the night. His decision-making surprisingly good, Austin, for coming off the bench. We can say that he certainly made the most of this opportunity, didn't he?
Yeah, and that's what you got to do if you're a backup quarterback. You never really know when your time is going to come. We didn't really talk about Cade McNamara as a huge factor in that quarterback competition when we were breaking it down before the season. But to his credit, he just kind of, he kept putting in the work, kept doing his job every day. And if you do that, eventually your time's going to come. And that's how it happened for him. He got a chance to go out there against Wisconsin and made an immediate impression, showed what he could do, played well enough to get another look in practice leading up to the Rutgers game, and then when he got his chance Saturday night, he went out there and did what he needed to do. So if you're a backup quarterback, it's exactly how you've got to approach it. And I think his mindset through all of this has allowed him now to be in a position to be the starting quarterback moving forward.
Right. We won't get anything official maybe until later today or later this week. Who knows? But right. I mean, got to be no way that he's not the starter against Penn State.
I think that's all but certain. When we talked to Jim Harbaugh after the game, he didn't, officially name a starter, but basically said, yeah, the way Cade McNamara has played, he's going to be in there. So, yeah, I would certainly expect him to be the starter against Penn State. And, really, I think he's done enough now that unless something drastic changes, I think he's won the job and earned the right to go out there and see what he can do with it.
Well, other aspects of the game struggled mightily again. The running game was just pathetic in the first half. But in the second half, there were some good signs, one being the bust-your-butt running style of Hassan Haskins. He had, I think, 22 carries on Saturday, had a rhythm going, and I think this kid deserves more carries just like that, don't you?
Yeah, that's one thing that we've noticed with this running back rotation is they play a lot of guys at running back. Zach Charbonnet was the team's leading rusher last year, had a really good freshman year. Hassan Haskins was right there with him. Chris Evans is back with the team. And Blake Corum, the freshman, has played well enough to warrant some time out there. And I think one thing that has been difficult is that when you have that many guys that you're trying to find carries for, it can be tough for your running game to get in a rhythm. And I think we saw some of that rhythm start to develop when they really started feeding the ball to Hassan Haskins. I think the strength that Hassan Haskins brings is, he's a north-south runner. When you give him a crease, he's going to put his head down, he's going to drive his legs, and he's going to get everything that you can get out of that run. And Michigan's running game, they've struggled with negative plays. They've had too many running plays that went for negative yardage or no gain. And I think Hassan Haskins might be, the best suited to just keep that running game moving forward. He's not the most explosive running back, but he gets you positive yards every time. He gets the tough yards. And I think maybe that, I think that might make him the best suited to be kind of the lead back in this offense.
Well, the offensive line had 3 starters out. They looked lost in the first half. And I know we were playing Rutgers. We keep reminding ourselves of that. But, when Cade came in, started completing some passes, and the Rutgers D had to respect that, at least some, that opened up the running game. And again, I know it was Rutgers. But the offensive line did play better in the second half, didn't they?
Yeah, I thought that offensive line has been through so much transition and really has been in flux all year. I did think in the second half we saw some stuff that they can build around. As long as the 2 starting tackles are out and we don't know when Jalen Mayfield and Ryan Hayes will be back, but that unit is going to be a little bit unsettled, as long as those guys are out. And it's just a matter of, can they find enough consistency to be able to be okay in the running game and to be okay in pass protection. And I think that's what we saw in that second half is we started to see the young guys get a little bit of confidence Zach Carpenter making his first start at center, Carson Barnhart playing at left tackle. There's going to be some growing pains. There's going to be some ups and downs for those guys, but if they can just find some stuff to build on, start to feel comfortable with a few different concepts, then hopefully they'll be able to kind of hold up until we hope that we see the starters back in there at the tackle spots.
I also thought the receiving corps did some things they can build on. I thought they were much better with Cade in the game. They seem to be getting more separation in the second half, and the tight ends cut down on those drops, which have been costly thus far this year. And I know in the eye of progress that is small, but I thought the receivers were okay Saturday night.
Yeah, I thought so too. And I think maybe the way Cade McNamara plays and the way he runs the offense maybe is a little bit better fit for the personnel that Michigan has, especially at receiver. Joe Milton, with the arm that he has, he likes to take the downfield shots. And, if you've got big receivers who can go up and pull the ball down, maybe if it's not a perfect throw, or maybe if you've got a defender there, if there was a guy like Nico Collins in this offense, I think that would be a great fit for Joe Milton and his ability to throw the deep ball. But that's not really the personnel that Michigan has on offense. The receivers they have, they're good in space. They're a little bit smaller, quicker guys. And I think the way Cade McNamara plays, with just getting the ball out quickly, getting the ball in the hands of his playmakers in rhythm, I think maybe that's a little bit better fit for the personnel that Michigan has at receiver. And maybe that's part of why we saw those guys make a few more plays than we've seen in previous weeks.
Well, over on the other side of the ball, I am not sure what to say. Don Brown's defense just could not stop Rutgers all night, could they?
It has been a struggle on that side of the ball. We knew it would be without Aiden Hutchinson and Kwity Paye. Those are two guys, maybe the two best players on that defense. And then when Cam McGrone goes down, all of a sudden, it's tough. But still, it is hard to understand what's happened with Michigan's defense, because we're used to seeing Don Brown's defenses, really be dominant against teams that have lesser talent. We know the struggles they've had against Ohio State and teams of that caliber, but last year it was 52-0 against Rutgers, and this was a much better Rutgers team. Greg Schiano really has made some big strides with that program in a pretty short time. But still, the talent advantage, you would think, would be pretty heavily in Michigan's favor. And so for that defense, again, to struggle the way they did, it's just kind of hard to understand, because Don Brown's defenses have, at their best, they've been really good, and we just haven't seen that so far this year.
No, and we all know there are injuries and they are young, but they are just getting pushed off the ball in the trenches. I don't know if it's just me, but that Michigan front looks, other than Chris Hinton, they look small, don't they?
Yeah, Carlo Kemp is an undersized defensive tackle. They've got him bumped out to defensive end right now. He's just a guy, he's wherever you put him, he's going to play his heart out. You love him for that reason. But yeah, maybe not the prototypical size that you would see from a Big Ten defensive tackle. Some of the edge guys they have, like a Luigi Villain, he's a player who would be great in a situational role as a third down pass rusher. Maybe doesn't have the size you would want, like as an every down defensive end in the Big Ten. So yeah, they definitely lost. They lost some size and they lost some strength without Aiden Hutchinson and Kwity Paye. That's for sure. I think it's a combination of things. It's the defensive line. I think they've had some issues with their run fits at the second level too. So there's a lot of stuff going on with that defense. But definitely, you take away those two defensive ends, and those guys are just impossible to replace.
Well, when I was trying to analyze the game yesterday, I was trying to find a positive, at least one, from what I saw on that defense on Saturday night. I think Chris Hinton was probably that positive. Did you see anything that you were able to look at and say, this is progress, they're moving in the right direction?
Yeah, I thought Chris Hinton showed some flashes in that game. He had a sack, was pretty active, so I would definitely point to him. I thought as a cornerbacks, they still had, they had some times where they were beaten. The pass defense still needs to improve. I do think we've seen some very gradual progress with those guys going back to, really the low points against Michigan State and Indiana. I think the fact that they've still sort of, that they're still out there, they've showed some small strides. I think it would have been easy for those guys to just kind of, pack it in, frankly, as bad as things were going early in the season. And they haven't done that. It still looks like they're battling. So that, that's good. You still got to get, you got to get way more consistent. For Michigan's defense to work, their coverage has to be better down the field. So they're definitely not where they want to be. But, at least I think they've showed some signs that, that this defense hasn't quit. And I think that's probably the best thing you can point to and say, they're still working on this stuff. They're still showing some progress. You just, you'd hope to see it a little bit quicker.
Right. And I think, sadly, it is what it is at this point of the year with just 3-4 games left, however many we have to play. I don't see any way things get better, but you just have to keep on plugging and getting a lot of the young guys in and getting ready for the future, don't you?
It's such a weird season, with the 8-game regular season schedule. It's crazy to think we're already more than halfway through the season, but there's not a lot of time to make amends for things. In a normal season, you have one or two bad games. Maybe you say, well, it's a long season, we'll get that back later. But that's not the case this year. Once Michigan had that 3-game losing streak, then certain things are just off the table. And that's how it works in a short season like this. And so you have to readjust your goals and your expectations. And for Michigan now, it's not about winning the Big Ten East. That's not going to happen. Right now, it's about how can you get better the rest of this season. And a big part of that, as you mentioned, is figuring out who are the younger players on this team who are going to really play their hearts out the rest of the year and prove that that they belong on the field in the future. And I think that's what we're all going to be looking at really starting this week against Penn State.
Well, as you mentioned, this Saturday, Thanksgiving weekend, Penn State comes to town. And if there is another team that can match Michigan when it comes to frustration levels, it has to be Penn State. And I know they have opt-outs, injuries, a lot of youth. But like Michigan, it is shocking to watch them play right now, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, if you talk about disappointing teams in the Big Ten, Penn State's got to be at the top of the list. I know it's been a tough season for Michigan, and Michigan fans are not happy to be sitting here at 2-3. But imagine being Penn State at 0-5, and that was a team that started the year in the top 10 with expectations or hopes, at least, of contending for the college football playoff. And the wheels have just come completely off for that program. And maybe it puts Michigan's struggles in perspective a little bit. That you look at a team as talented as Penn State, and you see just the weird things that have happened this year with as you mentioned, opt-outs and injuries. Penn State has been hit as hard by that as anybody, but still, it's baffling for a team as talented as they are, and a team that has been as good as they have been. To be 0-5 is pretty stunning to see.
No, absolutely it is. And for me, Austin, trying to figure out this game, it's nearly impossible if you look at the work of both teams to this point in the season. I suppose if you're Jim Harbaugh and staff, you just coach the guys up. You keep on trying to carry on what you started in the second half against Rutgers, try to build on that, as we've mentioned. That's not what Michigan fans want to hear in year 6 of the Harbaugh era. But it is where we are, isn't it?
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. I think from Michigan's perspective, you look at this and you say, well, you needed to beat Rutgers, and you would have liked it to be a cleaner performance for sure. You don't want to go down 17-0. You don't want to need 3 overtimes to beat Rutgers. But at the end of the day, that was a game that Michigan desperately needed to win, and winning that game gives you a chance now, as you look ahead. Penn State coming in this week has not won a game. You feel like that's a chance to take advantage of a rival that's struggling, and I think that's the message this week. Then Maryland, if Maryland's able to get back on track, that's a game that Michigan should be able to win. You would think, you would hope. So there is a chance now with the schedule to maybe string together a few wins and to go into the Ohio State game in a better place certainly than Michigan was just a few days ago. So that's all you can really do right now.
Well, in this crazy COVID year of college football, I think a lot of us have been able to watch more football this year, more Big Ten, more around the country, other conferences. Ohio State, even though Indiana torched their secondary, and they did it big time Saturday, still looks like they are the best by far in the Big Ten and a lock for the playoffs when you look at their schedule.
Yeah, Mike, I would think so. Ohio State hasn't been as dominant as maybe we expected. They've shown that they're not a perfect team, and they showed that against Indiana. Teams have had some success throwing the ball against Ohio State, and if you're Michigan and you're looking for any just little glimmer of hope, I guess you can point to that Ohio State has not been dominant defensively, but still they are by far the most talented team in the Big Ten. One of the most talented teams in the country, and if they're undefeated at the end of the year, they'll be in the playoff. I believe that wholeheartedly, and I don't see a team in the Big Ten that really is going to challenge them the rest of the way. Northwestern is a great story, and continue to surprise people. I think Northwestern opened some eyes with the way they played against Wisconsin. A good team, certainly a great story, but I think clearly still it's Ohio State and everybody else in the Big Ten.
Yeah, last question for you then, Austin, and it was about that Northwestern game. I had a chance to watch that entire game, and I was surprised. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be. From week to week, we just see some really strange things happen, not only in the Big Ten and college football, but God bless Pat Fitzgerald. He just seems to do a great job with, what did they say, the 48th most talented team in the country or whatever the stat is. They just bust their butts, and they played a really good game against Wisconsin. But I was sitting there thinking, if they win the West, I don't see this team being able to play a half with Ohio State. Do you?
Yeah, I really expected Wisconsin to win that game on Saturday, and I know that Wisconsin has had its issues with Northwestern. My perspective was probably skewed a little bit by just how dominant Wisconsin was against Michigan. Mm-hmm. I really thought that Wisconsin team, after what I saw at Michigan Stadium, was as good as any Wisconsin team that I'd seen, just because they were so balanced. With Graham Mertz offers some things at quarterback that maybe Wisconsin hasn't always had in their run game and their defense. So I was pretty high on Wisconsin coming into that game, and then credit to Northwestern. I mean, they just did what Northwestern does. They played at their pace. They played their kind of game, a low scoring, defensive, physical game, imposed their will on that game. And, I think in a best case scenario for the Big Ten, you would have a team like Wisconsin that, maybe was able to run the table and go into the championship game undefeated. And, you would have a legitimate conversation of, do we have two playoff caliber teams in this league this year? And I don't think that's going to be the conversation now. I think Northwestern, I think they can beat anybody in the league outside of Ohio State. But if it comes down to Ohio State, Northwestern in the championship game, then I think we're getting an undefeated Ohio State team going to the playoffs. That would be my prediction.
I think everyone assumes that is going to happen, but we have another few weeks to see it play out, and it will be at least entertaining. Here with us on our Michigan Game Day segment this week has been Austin Meek from The Athletic. As always, a pleasure having you on the show, Austin, and we look forward to that next visit.
Thank you, Mike. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, and be safe, Austin. On Quick Hits today, as I mentioned earlier, Jim said he will not name a quarterback yet for Saturday's game. On his radio show Monday night, he praised Joe Milton, though. Thought he played well, just had some bad luck. Said he planned to play McNamara anyway against Rutgers. I think most of us will be shocked, though, if Cade is not under center on Saturday. Jim said a lot of guys were working through injuries. He wouldn't say right now if Cam McGrone and Kwity Paye would be able to go this week. Once again, we'll have to wait until Saturday and see who suits up. On Thursday's Visitors Edition, our guest will be the longtime radio play-by-play voice of Penn State football, Steve Jones. If we think we're frustrated, you can imagine how Nittany Lions fans feel. Number 8 to start the season, and now winless through 5. There are a lot of reasons they're struggling, and we'll get the inside scoop on some of those on this Thursday show with Steve Jones. That will do it for now, though. I know Thursday's show airs on Thanksgiving Day, so in case some of you can't join us, let me wish each and every one of you a very happy Thanksgiving. And thanks again for taking time to listen. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Until we meet again on Thursday, have a great Wolverine week, everyone. Take care, and as always, go blue. Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!